Brothers and sisters, listen carefully. In a world where every day feels like a betrayal by our own leaders, one young man, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has emerged to rewrite our history. Just 1 year in power and he's already made moves that have Washington in panic mode. Wall Street is in disbelief. Europe is in denial. And tonight, you will understand why. This young revolutionary leader from Burkina Faso has just executed the boldest move of his career. As Cousteau said, $2.1 billion to pivot his nation away from the West and towards a new future. Brothers and sisters, this is not just a business deal. This is a declaration of independence. With this move, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has not only shattered America's grip on Burkina Faso, he has cracked open the very foundation of Western domination across Africa. For decades, Western companies have been exploiting our resources, profiting from our pain and keeping us in poverty. But no more. Tonight, we celebrate the new Africa rising. We celebrate the leaders who are putting our people first. And we celebrate the brave captain who dared to dream of a better future for his nation. For 500 years, Africa has lived under the shadow of exploitation. From the transatlantic slave trade to the colonial partition of the continent. From the World Bank's debt traps to the suffocating CFA franc, Western powers have treated Africa not as a partner, but as a quarry to be mined. Generations were told the same lie, that Africa could not survive without Western permission, Western markets, Western loans. But that myth has just been destroyed. In one fell swoop, China has demolished that narrative. In 1 year, China's trade with Africa reached $300 billion. That is $300 billion in 1 year. And guess what? It's more than triple the combined trade of the United States, Europe, and Japan. This is not aid. This is not charity. This is trade. And trade is based on one simple principle. You give me something I want, and I will give you something you want. Africa has a lot to offer. China respects that. China has become Africa's biggest trading partner because it offers win-win solutions. It does not exploit. It does not take for granted. It adds value. Enter Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a 36-year-old soldier who rose not through family dynasties or Western backing, but through the will of his people. He wears no tailored suit, speaks with no foreign accent, and carries no colonial baggage. Instead, he carries the dreams of 23 million and, increasingly, the hopes of an entire continent. Is not just a president. He is the face of defiance. The David, standing before the Goliath of American empire. The last straw. But the empire did not retreat quietly. In early August 2025, the United States struck first. Crushing tariffs of 50% were slapped on Burkina Faso's second-largest export, shea butter. The message was clear. Submit to our economic control, or watch your economy collapse. For decades, such pressure had broken African leaders, but Traoré was not one of them. He had seen enough. This was the moment he had been preparing for, while the US and its allies were busy flexing their military might, pouring billions into weapons and waging a media war. Traoré had been quietly assembling a powerful weapon of his own, the Sankara Revolution. And as the first shots of the counteroffensive were fired, it became clear that this was not just a military victory, but a complete and total defeat of the empire. The people of Burkina Faso had reclaimed their country and their future was now in their own hands. Within 72 hours, just 3 days, Traoré flipped the script. In Beijing, standing alongside President Xi Jinping, he signed a $2.1 billion zero-tariff trade agreement. And it was not just any deal, it was a declaration of economic independence. The numbers shook the world. $1 billion in guaranteed trade over 5 years. Zero tariffs on all exports. Financing at 2% interest compared to the World Bank's suffocating $12,800 million in infrastructure and advanced technology transfer. For the first time in modern African history, a deal was structured to serve Africa, not Wall Street. This is the new era of African trade. This is the new partnership. Let the details sink in. In 3 days, Burkina Faso will be launching a new national airline, a direct flight from Beijing to Ouagadougou. Chinese companies are now building a high-speed railway in Burkina Faso. They're building a standard-gauge railway, a game-changer for the landlocked country. The White House went into emergency mode. They put CICIT officials and their families on a sanctions list, basically freezing their assets and making it illegal for them to travel to the US or Europe. They tried to choke off payments to Burkina Faso through SWIFT, the international banking system. They pressured Europe to boycott products, especially cotton and gold, and they deployed 3,000 new troops to countries near Burkina Faso under the guise of fighting terrorism, and they stepped up drone surveillance across the region. And, finally, Western media outlets launched a $200 million propaganda blitz to paint Traore as a puppet of Beijing. This is the empire striking back. They're terrified of China's growing influence in Africa, and they're desperate to crush it. But why? Why are they so afraid of a small country like Burkina Faso? What makes this tiny nation so dangerous in their eyes? And how did they go from being a colony of France to a beacon of independence? To find out, stay tuned. Last year, the US pressured Burkina Faso to not sign a trade deal with China. They didn't listen. And now Washington is furious because the deal is bulletproof. Here is what Washington did not expect. The deal was not in dollars. Payments were in Chinese yuan and digital currency, bypassing the dollar system entirely. The shipping routes flow through Chinese-controlled ports in East Africa. The insurance was provided by Chinese state firms, and the legal jurisdiction was placed under neutral arbitration, not American courts. For the first time ever, an African trade agreement is untouchable by American sabotage. Colonel Odu, Sanfo Burkina Faso's Trade Security Coordinator summarized it best. For the first time in our history, we have a trade relationship that America cannot sabotage. This is a new era of trade that the US is losing. China is winning, and it all comes down to one thing: control. China offers them a yuan, a digital currency that they can use to buy things from each other without having to go through the US dollar system. And that is why this trade deal is so important. And then the dominoes began to fall. In January 2022, Mali announced a $1.8 billion mining deal with China, ending decades of French exploitation. 1 month later, Niger signed a $2.3 billion uranium partnership with China, just as it was about to fall into the hands of Russia. In July, Chad announced plans for a $1.2 billion oil refinery, financed entirely by China. 2 weeks later, Guinea announced a $3.4 billion bauxite processing facility, which would turn the country into an aluminum powerhouse. And finally, in September, Burkina Faso, the landlocked West African nation, had lit a fire across the continent when it announced a plan to build a $2 billion gold refinery. It's the largest investment in the country's history. These deals are part of China's larger plan to secure access to Africa, vast natural resources, and to build a network of Chinese-funded infrastructure across the continent. But it's not just about money, it's also about influence. China is using its growing economic power to reshape the political map of Africa, one deal at a time. And the African countries are more than happy to make the switch. This is a story about Africa's new billionaires. But behind these billions are real people, like Aminata Sawadogo, a 34-year-old shea butter processor from Burkina Faso. She used to sell raw nuts for pennies to Europeans who would then process them and sell the finished product back to her for 10 times the price. But with a Chinese-backed processing facility now in her village, she sells the finished shea butter herself for 1,800 francs per kilogram. Her income has tripled. Her kids are in school. Her dignity is restored. A logistics worker, Ibrahim, no relation to the president, explained how European ports once stole 40% of their profits in fees. Today, shipping directly to Shanghai costs just 12%. His community's earnings have tripled. These are not theories. These are lives transformed. And this is just the beginning. With over 1 billion people in Africa now using digital services, we're seeing more and more people like Mbina and Ibrahim across the continent. What do you mean by exploitation? You said that African countries have the resources to manufacture their way out of poverty. But the deal offered more than markets. It brought technology. The $180 million Ouagadougou Technology Center now houses 3D printing labs, renewable energy research, automated packaging systems, and a 5G digital backbone. For the first time, engineers are filing patents, designing products, and competing globally. Western corporations extracted Africa's wealth. China is building Africa's capacity. That is the difference between exploitation and partnership. And make no mistake about it, this is a partnership. Africa is not a continent to be exploited. Africa is a continent to be invested in. We will continue to tell the African story. Follow us for more. Africa is the youngest population on Earth, and Africa's youth have taken notice. When hashtags like #TradePivot exploded to nearly 1 billion impressions, it got the attention of young Africans who are tired of being talked down to by Western media. When videos comparing how China builds versus how America extracts got tens of millions of views, it was clear that there was a growing interest in learning more about China. So much so that Mandarin Chinese has become the fastest growing foreign language in African schools. For the first time in modern memory, African students are not just learning Chinese because it's a useful tool for their future careers. They're learning it because they want to be part of a rising global force, not a continent condemned to dependency. International business programs are booming. More and more African countries are choosing to trade with China. And the next generation of African leaders are looking to their own countries and seeing a future filled with opportunity, not just for themselves, but for everyone. The transformation is measurable. GDP growth of 6.8%, the highest in West Africa. Export revenue up 340%. Foreign currency reserves rising 5-fold. Youth employment in skilled sectors up 280%. Burkina Faso was once seen as a hopeless case study in landlocked African country, but in just 2 years, it has become the model of African economic sovereignty. How? By investing in its people, by investing in education and training, by attracting foreign direct investment, by promoting exports, and by creating jobs. The numbers speak for themselves. Burkina Faso's economy has grown by 6.8%, the highest growth rate in West Africa. Its export revenue has tripled. Its foreign currency reserves have increased 5-fold. And most importantly, youth unemployment in skilled sectors has dropped by 280%. This is what economic growth looks like when you invest in your people. This is what development looks like when you promote exports and attract foreign direct investment. This is the future of Africa. Let's get to work. 15 nations have followed Burkina Faso's path. Inter-African trade has surged by 67%. For the first time in history, Africa trades more with Asia than with Europe and America combined, and leaders across the continent are realizing a profound truth. Development does not require dependency. Here is the story of how one country's decision to trade with its neighbors rather than rely on foreign aid sparked a movement across the continent. In 2018, Burkina Faso decided to stop importing rice from Europe and America, and instead import it from Thailand and India. This saved them $300 million in foreign exchange. Other countries, like Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa, noticed these savings and decided to do the same. Today, 15 African countries have adopted this approach, boosting inter-African trade by 67%. For the first time in history, Africa now trades more with Asia than with Europe and America combined. This is a testament to the power of trade and the importance of regional integration. It shows that Africa is open for business and that the future of the continent's development lies in its ability to trade with its neighbors. But empires do not surrender easily. Last week, we told you about Operation Trade Disruption, a classified Western plan to cripple Africa's economy. It involves cyber attacks, currency manipulation, shipping blockades, and even assassination plots. But instead of breaking Africa's resolve, these attacks have forged unity. I want you to take a minute to appreciate the level of public support that the African continent has never seen before. In Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, and Morocco, millions of people have taken to the streets to demand their countries break away from the West and chart their own course. The momentum is building. This is what the African Union looks like when it is not divided. This is what it looks like when all 54 African countries are united. We have never seen anything like this before, and it is happening right now. The question is, How can we sustain it? How can we make sure that this momentum continues? Share your thoughts. Let the discussion continue. This is more than economics. It is a civilizational turning point. For 500 years, Africa was told it could not stand on its own. For 65 years of independence, it was told it could not develop without Western approval. But Captain Ibrahim has proven them wrong. Burkina Faso, a landlocked nation in West Africa, has been called hopeless by the World Bank. Yet under the leadership of this former military captain who took over in a coup last year, the country is now the fastest growing economy in Africa with a GDP growth rate of 8.4%. That's 4 times the average African country. How did they do it? By investing in their people. The government of Captain Traoré has prioritized education and healthcare. They've also invested in infrastructure and industry, and the results are astounding. In just 1 year, Burkina Faso has become the second largest gold producer in Africa. Right after South Africa, they've also attracted major investments from China, Russia, and the UAE. This is a testament to what can be achieved when we invest in our people and our future. This is the African Renaissance. So I ask you, if you believe Africa's resources must serve African people, write trade freedom in the comments. If you believe Africa deserves leaders who stand for sovereignty, share this video with everyone you know. And if you believe the story of Africa's rise must be told without Western filters, then subscribe to Voices of Africa and join us in this movement. We are living in a time when the narrative of our continent is being written by outsiders, and it's a story filled with so much potential, but it's filtered through a Western lens. At Voice of Africa, we are committed to telling the story of our continent without that filter, without the bias, without the stereotypes. We want to show the world the real Africa, the one that is rising, the one that is taking its rightful place in the world. This channel is just one part of the movement. There is also a newsletter, a website, and most importantly, a community of Africans and friends of Africa who are working together to build a better future for our continent. The storm is coming. Washington and Brussels will use every weapon, economic, political, and military to crush this model of independence. But this time Africa is ready. This time we have proof that independence works. This time we have 1.4 billion young Africans who refuse to accept economic slavery. When Captain Ibrahim Traoré took office, he inherited a country in tatters, a country that was totally dependent on foreign aid. In less than a year, he has turned things around. He has signed a trade deal that will bring in billions of dollars to the country. He has ended the illegal gold trade that was bleeding the country. And he has declared that Africa's future belongs to Africa. And that, brothers and sisters, is why they will never forgive him. But it is also why we will never abandon him. Thank you for watching Voices of Africa. Together, we are not just changing trade patterns, we are changing the world.